I was early. The cold November wind blew through my jacket as I drove my truck into the rocky driveway of our family cottage in Muskoka, 2 hours north of Toronto. My truck's lights shined on a silver Audi car I had never seen before. It was parked near the front door. I turned off the engine and sat there for a moment, confused. The cottage had belonged to my family for 37 years. My late wife Margaret and I bought it back in 1988, when our son Brandon was just a little kid. After Margaret died 3 years ago, I gave the cottage to Brandon and his wife Stephanie as a wedding gift. They had been married for 8 years now. They had two beautiful daughters, Emma, who was 6, and little Olivia, who just turned 4. I checked my watch, 3:15 in the afternoon. I wasn't supposed to arrive until 5, but the heating man had called that morning saying he could come earlier to give me a price for replacing the old heater before winter really came. Brandon had asked me to handle it since he was in Vancouver on a business trip until Thursday. Stephanie had told me she would be in Toronto all week with the girls. Something about Emma's dance show and Olivia's doctor visit. So whose car was that? I stepped out of my truck. My boots crunched on the frosty rocks. The cottage looked peaceful. Smoke curled from the chimney. Someone had lit a fire. The curtains in the main bedroom were closed, which was strange. Stephanie always liked keeping them open to see the lake view. My phone buzzed. The heating man. "Hey, Tom. Running about 20 minutes late. Traffic on the 400 is really bad. That okay?" "No problem, Gary. See you soon." I put my phone in my pocket and walked toward the front door, taking out my keys. But something made me stop. Call it instinct. Call it the same gut feeling that had kept me safe during my 32 years as a police detective with Toronto Police Service. Something wasn't right. I walked around the side of the cottage instead. My feet were silent on the fallen pine needles. The kitchen window was a little foggy, but I could see dirty dishes in the sink. 2 wine glasses. A bottle of red wine, almost empty. A woman's coat, not Stephanie's, hanging over one of the chairs. My heart started to pound. I moved along the side of the building, careful not to make noise. The main bedroom window faced the lake, but there was a smaller window on the side that looked into the hallway. I looked in. Through the open bedroom door, I could see movement, Stephanie's blonde hair. But she wasn't alone. A man I'd never seen before, tall, dark-haired, probably in his mid-30s. He had his arms around her. They were kissing. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. For a moment, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This was my daughter-in-law. The woman Brandon had fallen in love with at college. The woman I'd walked down the aisle when her own father had died 2 years before their wedding. The mother of my granddaughters. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and started taking pictures through the window. The detective training never really leaves you. Get the proof first, feel your feelings later. Click. Stephanie running her hands through his hair. Click. Him pulling her closer. Click. Them moving toward the bed. I had to look away. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I leaned against the cottage wall, trying to steady my breathing. How long had this been going on? Who was this man? Did Brandon have any idea? My son, my boy, working himself to death as an architect, traveling all the time to keep his family comfortable, trusting his wife completely. And this was what he came home to? I wanted to burst through that door. I wanted to confront them right then and there. But something stopped me. Maybe it was years of detective work teaching me to be smart about things. Maybe it was knowing that confronting them now, without Brandon present, would only give them time to come up with matching lies. Instead, I walked back to my truck as quietly as I'd approached. I sat in the driver's seat, my mind racing. I had about 15 minutes before Gary, the heating man, arrived. I needed to think. I looked at the pictures on my phone. They were clear enough, bad enough, but they didn't tell me the whole story. How long had this affair been going on? Was this the first time they'd used our family cottage? Were there money problems I should know about? Then something else occurred to me, something that made my blood run cold. Brandon and Stephanie had a shared bank account. Brandon had mentioned just last month that he'd been surprised by how quickly their savings seemed to be disappearing. He thought it was because of the girl's activities and house expenses. But what if there was another reason? I called my former partner, Helen, who'd retired from the police force 2 years ago, but now worked as a private investigator. Tom Chen, to what do I owe the pleasure? Helen, I need a favor, a secret one. Her tone changed immediately. What's wrong? I told her everything, the pictures, my worries. She listened without interrupting, the way she always had during our years working together. I can have basic money records pulled by tomorrow, she said quietly. Shared accounts, credit cards, anything under both their names. If there's money missing, we'll find it. As for who the man is, send me the clearest photo you got. I'll run it through some databases. Thank you. Tom, I'm sorry. I know Brandon is like a son to me, too. After I hung up, I sat there staring at the cottage. What was I going to do? Brandon deserved to know. But how do you tell your son that his wife has betrayed him? How do you destroy his world with a phone call? Gary's pickup truck rumbled up the driveway. I pulled myself together, got out, and shook his hand. Let's take a look at that heater, I said, forcing my voice to sound normal. We spent 45 minutes in the basement. Gary took measurements, made notes, talked about heat units and how well things worked. I nodded at the right times and asked good questions, but my mind was upstairs. I kept listening for sounds. Voices, footsteps, anything. But the cottage was quiet. When Gary finally left with a promise to email me a quote by tomorrow, I sat in my truck for another 10 minutes, thinking hard. The silver Audi was still there. They had no idea I'd seen them. They had no idea their secret was no longer a secret. I started my engine and drove away. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my home office in North York looking at those pictures, feeling sick. Helen called at 11. His name is Marcus Whitfield. He's a personal trainer at a gym in Mississauga, Premium Fitness on Dundas Street, 34 years old. And Tom, he's married. Wife's name is Jennifer. They have a 3-year-old son. Another family about to be destroyed. Another innocent person being betrayed. The money records? I asked. I'll have them by 9 tomorrow morning. Get some rest if you can. I couldn't. I spent the night on my laptop checking property records and looking at social media accounts. By morning, I had a timeline. Marcus Whitfield had been tagged at Premium Fitness in several of Stephanie's Instagram posts over the past 18 months. Always group fitness classes, always with other people in the photos. Clever. At 9:03, Helen called back. Tom, you need to sit down. I'm sitting. Over the past 14 months, there have been regular withdrawals from their shared savings account. $500 here, $1,000 there, always in cash. Total amount, just over $32,000. I closed my eyes. $32,000. There's more. 3 months ago, a personal loan was taken out against the cottage, $50,000. Brandon's signature is on the papers, but Brandon doesn't know anything about it. The loan payments are coming from the shared account, which is probably why he hasn't noticed yet. But Tom, if those payments stop, the bank can take the cottage. My hands clenched into fists. Not only was Stephanie destroying my son's marriage, she was destroying him financially. She'd forged his signature, she'd stolen from their children's future, and she'd put our family cottage, the place where Margaret and I had made our happiest memories, at risk. What do you want me to do? Helen asked quietly. Can you write everything down? I need a complete report. Every transaction, every withdrawal, every piece of proof. I'll have it to you by end of day. And Tom, about Marcus Whitfield's wife. She deserves to know too. I know. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time. Brandon was flying back from Vancouver tomorrow evening. He'd be home by 8. I had less than 36 hours to decide how to handle this. I couldn't tell him over the phone. This wasn't that kind of conversation, but I also couldn't let this continue. Every day I waited was another day of betrayal. Another day of lies. I made a decision. I called my lawyer, David Kowalski. We'd been friends since college, long before I became a cop and he became one of Toronto's top family law attorneys. "Tom, how are you? Haven't heard from you since Margaret's memorial service." "David, I need your help. It's about Brandon." I told him everything. The pictures, the money, the forged loan papers. He listened with the careful attention of a lawyer building a case. "Tom, this is serious. The money fraud alone, if Brandon wants to go after it, Stephanie could face criminal charges. And in divorce court, this kind of proof is terrible for her position. I need you to prepare everything. Papers, legal options, everything Brandon might need. I want him to have every advantage when I tell him." "When are you planning to tell him?" "Tomorrow night, when he gets home. I'll have everything ready by 5 tomorrow." "Tom, I'm sorry. I know this isn't easy." Nothing about this was easy. That afternoon, I drove back to the cottage. The silver Audi was gone. I used my key to let myself in. The place looked normal. The wine glasses had been washed and put away. The bed was made. Stephanie had cleaned up, erased the proof, but she hadn't known about the pictures. She hadn't known about the witness. I walked through the cottage slowly, remembering Margaret laughing in the kitchen, Brandon as a little boy running down to the dock, family dinners, Christmas mornings, birthday celebrations. This place had been filled with love, and Stephanie had ruined it. My phone rang. It was Brandon. "Hey, Dad, just wanted to let you know I'm catching an earlier flight. Should be home by 7 tomorrow instead of 8. Did the heater guy give you a quote?" "Yes," I managed. "We need to talk when you get home. Can you come by my place?" "Sure. Everything okay?" "We'll talk tomorrow. Fly safe, son." After I hung up, I walked down to the dock and sat there as the sun began to set over Lake Muskoka. The water was so still it looked like glass. A loon called out somewhere in the distance. This place had always been peaceful. Now it just felt sad. I pulled out my phone and looked at Helen's message. She'd sent me Jennifer Whitfield's contact information. Marcus's wife, another innocent person caught in this web of lies. I stared at that phone number for a long time. What would I want if I were her? Would I want to know? Or would not knowing be easier? But I knew the answer. Margaret would have wanted to know. She would have wanted the truth, no matter how painful. Every person deserves the truth. I made the call. "Hello?" A woman's voice. Careful. "Is this Jennifer Whitfield?" "Yes. Who's calling?" "My name is Tom Chen. You don't know me, but I have something I need to tell you about your husband, Marcus. Something you have a right to know." There was a long pause. "What about Marcus?" "Ma'am, I think we should meet in person. This isn't a conversation for the phone." Another pause. Then quietly, "You're going to tell me he's having an affair, aren't you?" I was shocked. "You knew?" "I suspected for months now. The late-night gym sessions, the new cologne, the way he's been distant." Her voice cracked. "I just didn't want to believe it. I have a 3-year-old son. I kept hoping I was wrong." "I'm so sorry, but you're not wrong, and you deserve to know who it is, because her husband doesn't know yet, and I think we both need to tell them together." We met at a Tim Hortons in Mississauga the next morning. Jennifer Whitfield was a small woman with tired eyes and brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was wearing scrubs. She was a nurse at Credit Valley Hospital. I showed her the pictures. She looked at each one carefully. Her face showed no emotion. When she finished, she set the phone down and wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "That's Stephanie," she said. "Marcus trains her. He's mentioned her before, said she was one of his best clients." She laughed bitterly. "I guess she was." "Jennifer, there's something else you should know. Stephanie has been stealing money from her family. She's taken over $30,000 from her shared account with her husband, and she forged his signature on a loan. I think she's been using that money to pay for this affair." Jennifer's eyes widened. $30,000? My son doesn't know yet about any of it. I'm telling him tonight." She was quiet for a moment, then looked at me directly. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I just thought you deserved to know the truth. What you do with that information is completely up to you." She nodded slowly. "When I get home tonight, I'm going to confront Marcus, and then I'm going to call a lawyer." She looked at me with something like respect. "Thank you for telling me. Most people would have just protected their own family. My son deserves justice, so do you, and so do our children." We parted ways in the parking lot. I watched her drive away in a Honda Civic with a car seat in the back, and I hoped she'd find the strength to do what needed to be done. That evening, Brandon's car pulled into my driveway at exactly 7:15. He looked tired. The Vancouver project had been hard, but he smiled when he saw me. "Hey, Dad." He hugged me the way he always did. My son was 39 now, but he'd always be my boy. "Come inside. I made coffee." "You sounded serious on the phone. Is everything okay? Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine. Sit down." Brandon. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Margaret had served thousands of family meals. Brandon looked at me with concern, and I realized how much he looked like his mother. Same eyes, same gentle way of tilting his head when he was worried. "Son, I need to tell you something, and it's going to be very hard to hear." His face went pale. "Are you sick?" "No, this isn't about me. It's about Stephanie." I told him everything. I showed him the pictures. I showed him Helen's money report. I watched my son's face change from confusion to disbelief to complete sadness. "No," he said. "No, there has to be a mistake. Stephanie wouldn't. We've been married for 8 years. We have 2 daughters. She wouldn't do this." "Brandon, those pictures could maybe be explained. Maybe they were just..." "Son," I put my hand on his shoulder. "I saw them with my own eyes through the window of our cottage, and the money records don't lie." He stood up suddenly, pacing. How long has this been going on?" "Based on the money records and social media, at least 18 months. 18 months. His voice cracked. "I've been working 70-hour weeks, traveling, trying to provide for our family. And she's been... He couldn't finish. He sat back down and put his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. I put my arm around him the way I had when he was a little boy and had scraped his knee or lost a soccer game. But this pain was so much deeper. This pain was going to last much longer. "Dad, what do I do?" "I've already called David Kowalski. He's prepared all the legal papers you'll need. Given the proof, especially the money fraud, you'll have a very strong position in divorce court. Custody of the girls, division of property, everything." Divorce. He said the word like it was foreign. I never thought I'd get divorced. "I know." "What about Emma and Olivia? They're so young. How do I tell them?" "We'll figure it out together. But Brandon, you need to understand something. Stephanie didn't just betray you. She betrayed your daughters. She stole from their future. She put our family cottage at risk. This isn't just about cheating. This is about character." He looked at me with red eyes. "What do I do now? Tonight?" "Tonight, you don't do anything. You stay here with me. Tomorrow morning, you and David meet to go over everything. Then you decide when and how to talk to Stephanie." I should go home. I should talk to her right now. "No," I said it firmly. "You're emotional. You're heartbroken. You need time to process this, to think clearly. Don't give her the advantage of seeing you unprepared. Trust me on this." He nodded slowly. "Okay." That night, Brandon slept in his old bedroom. I heard him crying at 2 in the morning. It was the same sound I'd heard when Margaret died, the sound of a heart breaking. The next morning, Brandon and David met at David's office. I waited at home, keeping myself busy by cooking. It's what Margaret always did when she was anxious. By noon, I had enough chicken soup to feed 20 people. Brandon called at 2. "Dad, can you come to David's office? There's something you need to see." When I arrived, Brandon and David were sitting at the conference table, surrounded by papers. Brandon looked like he hadn't slept in a week. "What is it?" David pushed a folder toward me. "We did some additional digging into the money records, Tom. Stephanie didn't just take $32,000 from the savings account and forge the loan papers. She also opened 3 credit cards in Brandon's name without his knowledge. The total debt she's built up is just over $87,000. I felt the room spin. $87,000? Most of it went to cash advances, luxury purchases, and hotel stays. We've traced several stays at the Four Seasons in Yorkville and the Ritz-Carlton in Toronto. She was living a double life, and she was paying for it by destroying Brandon's credit and stealing from his children." Brandon's voice was hollow. "I worked so hard. Every promotion, every raise. I thought we were building something. I thought we were securing our future, and she was just taking it all." "There's more," David said. "Based on this level of money lies and fraud, we can go after criminal charges if you want. The forged loan papers alone are fraud. The credit cards in your name could be identity theft. This isn't just divorce court. This could be criminal court." Brandon looked at me. "What do you think?" I thought about my granddaughters, about Emma and Olivia growing up knowing their mother was in prison, about the shame they'd carry, about Christmas visits to a jail. "I think," I said carefully, "that you need to protect yourself and your daughters first. Use the threat of criminal charges as leverage in the divorce. Make sure you get full custody. Make sure you get the cottage back free and clear. Make sure you're financially protected. But as for actually pressing charges, that's a decision you need to make very carefully." Brandon nodded. "I want full custody. I want the cottage. I want her to have no access to any of our accounts. But I don't want my daughters to visit their mother in prison. Is that wrong of me?" "No," I said. "It's compassionate. Maybe more compassionate than she deserves." David made notes. "Okay, I'll write up the divorce papers with these terms. Full custody to Brandon, supervised visits for Stephanie. She gets no claim to the cottage or any of the property she fraudulently got loans against, and she takes responsibility for all the debt she built up. In exchange, you won't press." "Criminal charges. That's a generous offer given the circumstances." "When do we tell her?" Brandon asked. "Tomorrow," David said. "I'll have the papers ready by noon. I suggest you confront her at the house with me present. Have everything documented. Record the conversation if Ontario law allows." "Can my dad be there?" David looked at me. "Technically, it's better if it's just Brandon and me, but Tom, you can be there as support. Just let Brandon and me handle the legal parts." The next day, we went to Brandon and Stephanie's house in Oakville. It was a beautiful home, 4 bedrooms, a large backyard where Emma and Olivia played on their swing set. Brandon had worked so hard to afford this place. Stephanie's car was in the driveway. The girls were at school. David knocked on the door. Stephanie opened it wearing yoga pants and a designer top I now realized Brandon probably didn't know she'd bought. "Brandon, you're home early. I didn't expect—" "Oh." She saw David in his suit, saw me standing behind them, and her face went pale. "What's going on?" "We need to talk," Brandon said. His voice was steady, but I could see his hands shaking. Inside, we all went into the living room. Stephanie sat on the couch looking between us nervously. "Brandon, you're scaring me. What's this about?" Brandon pulled out his phone and showed her one of the pictures. The color drained from her face completely. "Who is he?" Brandon asked quietly. That's... Brandon, I can explain." "Who is he?" Louder now. "His name is Marcus. He's my trainer. But it's not... We didn't... Those photos don't show..." "Stop." Brandon's voice was like steel. "I know about the affair. I know about the money you stole from our shared account. I know about the loan you forged my signature on. I know about the 3 credit cards you opened in my name. I know everything, Stephanie." She started crying. "Brandon, please, I made a mistake. I was confused. I was lonely. You were always traveling, and I just needed someone to pay attention to me." "So you stole $87,000 from our family?" Her tears stopped. "What?" David opened his briefcase and pulled out the papers. Mrs. Fraser, I'm David Kowalski, Mr. Fraser's lawyer. We have documented proof of extensive money fraud, including forged loan papers, unauthorized credit card applications, and systematic theft from shared accounts. The total amount is $87,432. Stephanie looked at Brandon. You brought a lawyer? What did you expect me to do? Brandon's voice broke. You betrayed me. You betrayed our daughters. You stole from us. You put our family cottage at risk. What did you think would happen when I found out? She stood up. I want a lawyer. I'm not saying anything else until I have a lawyer. That's your right, David said calmly. He handed her an envelope. These are divorce papers. You're being served. You have 30 days to respond. I strongly suggest you get legal representation immediately because the proof against you is substantial. Stephanie took the envelope with shaking hands. Brandon, please, think about the girls. Think about our family. I am thinking about the girls, Brandon said. That's why I'm removing them from this toxic situation. That's why I'm seeking full custody. Full custody? She looked panicked now. You can't take my daughters from me. You took their future from them when you stole their college fund. You took their security from them when you put our home at risk. You took their innocence from them when you decided to have an affair. I'm not taking them from you, Stephanie. You gave them away. We left her standing there in the living room, holding those divorce papers, crying. In the car, Brandon was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, Did I do the right thing? Yes, I said. You protected your daughters. You protected yourself. You chose the high road by not pressing criminal charges. You did everything right. Then why do I feel so awful? Because you're a good person. Because you loved her. Because this isn't how you thought your life would go. I put my hand on his shoulder. But son, you'll get through this. We'll get through this together. The next few weeks were brutal. Stephanie hired a lawyer, but the proof was overwhelming. She tried to claim the pictures were taken out of context, but then Jennifer Whitfield came forward with her own testimony. Marcus had confessed everything to her, and she was willing to testify in court if necessary. Stephanie tried to claim the money problems were mistakes, but the paper trail was too clear. The cash withdrawals, the hotel stays, the luxury purchases, all of it painted a picture of systematic lying. Her lawyer eventually told her to settle. The terms were harsh but fair. Brandon got full physical custody of Emma and Olivia. Stephanie got supervised visits every other weekend and one evening per week. Brandon kept the house and the cottage. Stephanie was responsible for all the debt she'd built up. The only thing she got was her car and her personal belongings. She signed the papers on a gray December morning, 3 weeks before Christmas. Brandon picked up the girls from school that day and brought them to my house. We all sat down together. Me, Brandon, Emma, and little Olivia. And Brandon explained as gently as he could that Mommy and Daddy weren't going to be married anymore. Emma, who was smart beyond her 6 years, asked, Is it because Mommy did something bad? Brandon looked at me and I saw the struggle in his eyes. How do you explain adult failures to a child? Sometimes, Brandon said carefully, grown-ups make choices that hurt the people they love. Your mom made some choices that hurt our family. But that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. It just means that Daddy and Mommy can't be together anymore. Will we still see Mommy? Olivia asked in her little voice. Yes, sweetheart. You'll see Mommy every week, and you'll still live in our house with me, and Grandpa will be around all the time. Nothing about how much you're loved is going to change. Emma thought about this for a moment. Then she climbed into Brandon's lap and hugged him. I love you, Daddy. Olivia joined them, and I watched my son hold his daughters close, his eyes closed, tears running down his face. The divorce was finalized in February. Brandon threw himself into being the best father he could be. He cut back his travel schedule, rearranged his work hours, and made sure he was always there for school pickups and bedtime stories. I helped however I could. I picked the girls up from school when Brandon had meetings. I made them dinner. I took them to the cottage on weekends, where we built snowmen and drank hot chocolate, and slowly took back those spaces from the shadow of Stephanie's betrayal. Stephanie, for her part, seemed to disappear. She moved into a small apartment in Burlington, got a job as an office assistant, and showed up dutifully for her supervised visits. The affair with Marcus had ended. Jennifer had divorced him too, and he'd moved back to Alberta. Stephanie was alone, dealing with the consequences of her choices. One Saturday in March, when I was picking Emma and Olivia up from their visit with Stephanie, she asked if she could speak to me privately. We stood outside the supervised visitation center while the girls played on the playground. "Tom," she said quietly, "I know you hate me. I know I destroyed everything, but I want you to know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I looked at her. She'd lost weight. Her hair was different, less styled. She looked older, tired. "I don't hate you," I said, "but I'm deeply disappointed in you. You had a good man who loved you. You had 2 beautiful daughters. You had security, comfort, a life that many people would wish for, and you threw it all away." "I know." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I was selfish. I was stupid. I convinced myself I deserved something more, something exciting. I didn't think about the consequences. I didn't think about what I was doing to Brandon, to the girls, to you." "The worst part," I said, "wasn't the affair. It was the theft. It was the fraud. You could have left Brandon if you were unhappy. You could have asked for a divorce, but you chose to steal from him, to lie to him, to destroy him financially while pretending everything was fine. That's not just a mistake, Stephanie. That's a choice to cause harm." She was crying now. "I can't take it back. I can't undo it. All I can do is try to be better. Try to be the mother Emma and Olivia deserve, even if I can only see them a few hours a week." "Then do that," I said. "Be better. Show your daughters that people can learn from their mistakes. Show them that taking responsibility matters. Because right now they're watching, they're learning, and they need to see that actions have consequences, but also that people can change." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Thank you for not pressing charges. Brandon could have sent me to prison. He could have, but he chose compassion over revenge. That's the kind of man your daughters are growing up with. That's the kind of example they're getting. I hope you appreciate that." "I do, every day." The girls ran over then, and Stephanie hugged them goodbye. I watched her face as they left with me. The pain, the regret, the love mixed with loss. She'd done this to herself, but that didn't make it any less painful to witness. That spring, Brandon started dating again. He was cautious, careful. He'd learned that trust was precious and easily broken, but he was also hopeful. He was healing. The cottage became our refuge again. We went up almost every weekend. Me, Brandon, Emma, and Olivia. We fished off the dock. We roasted marshmallows. We told stories about Margaret, keeping her memory alive for the girls. One evening in May, as the sun set over Lake Muskoka and the girls played in the shallows, Brandon sat next to me on the dock. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For finding out, for telling me, for helping me through it. I don't think I could have done this without you." "You're my son. That's what fathers do." "I know, but not all fathers would have handled it the way you did. You could have just told me and let me figure it out. Instead, you got the proof. You contacted Helen. You called David. You thought about the girl's future. You protected me even when I didn't know I needed protecting." I put my arm around his shoulders. "I learned a long time ago that sometimes love means making hard choices. Your mother taught me that. She would have done exactly the same thing. I miss her." "Me too. Every day." We sat there in comfortable silence, watching the girls play, listening to the loons call across the water. The cottage felt peaceful again. The betrayal that had happened here had been replaced by new memories, better memories. "Dad?" Brandon said again. "Yeah?" "Do you think I'll ever trust someone again enough to love them the way I loved Stephanie?" I thought about that for a moment. "Yes," I said, "because you're not broken. Stephanie broke her own integrity, her own character, but she didn't break yours. You're still the same good, honest, loving man you always were. And when you're ready, you'll find someone who deserves that." He nodded. "I hope so. I know so." 2 years have passed since that November day when I discovered Stephanie's betrayal. Alia is 8 now. Olivia is 6. They're doing well. They're happy. They see their mother regularly, and while the relationship is complicated, it's stable. Stephanie has completed counseling and is working to rebuild her life. She'll never have the family she once had, but she's learning to accept that consequences are real and lasting. Brandon met someone new last fall. Her name is Rachel. She's a school teacher, and she's wonderful with the girls. They're taking it slow, but I see hope in my son's eyes again. I see the possibility of happiness. As for me, I still go to the cottage regularly, sometimes with the family, sometimes alone. I sit on that dock and think about Margaret, about the life we built together, about the legacy we left in our son. And I think about the choices we all make. The choice to be faithful or to betray. The choice to be honest or to lie. The choice to build up or to tear down. Stephanie made her choices, Brandon made his, and I made mine. To protect my son, to stand up for what was right, to make sure that justice was served. I don't regret the phone call I made to Jennifer Whitfield. I don't regret hiring Helen to investigate. I don't regret calling David to prepare the legal papers. Because sometimes loving someone means doing the hard thing. It means exposing the truth even when the truth is painful. It means protecting them even when they don't know they need protection. That's what fathers do. That's what family does. And sitting here on this dock, watching the sunset over Lake Muskoka, listening to my granddaughters laugh as they play in the water, I know we made the right choices. We chose truth over comfortable lies. We chose justice over easy forgiveness. We chose to protect the innocent over protecting the guilty. Those choices were hard. Those choices were painful. But those choices were right. And in the end, that's all any of us can do. Make the right choice even when it's the hardest one. Because that's how we protect the people we love. That's how we build lives worth living. That's how we create legacies worth leaving. My granddaughters will grow up knowing their grandfather fought for them. They'll grow up knowing their father chose them over everything else. They'll grow up knowing that character matters, that integrity matters, that doing the right thing matters, even when it costs you everything. And that's a lesson worth more than any cottage, any amount of money, any comfortable lie. That's a lesson that will serve them for the rest of their lives.